thought, okay, I better be clear and succinct about this. So good evening, everybody. I'm here to talk to you about the various supports and services that MSD has to offer to the North Canterbury community, namely our 2 COVID financial support payments, MSD's recruitment services, and MSD's new redeployment support service. Now, there are 2 COVID-19 payments available to employers through MSD to help your workers that are either unwell with COVID or they're isolating because of COVID and that they can't work from home. Now, these supports come in the form of the COVID-19 short-term absence payment and the COVID-19 leave support payment. Now, the short-term absence payment is for your workers who must isolate while they wait for a PCR test. Who does a PCR test these days, but people still do, and they can't work from home. Obviously, if they're doing a rapid antigen test, given the speed of it, we know the outcome fairly quickly. So look, it's a one-off payment of $359 for each worker or self-employed person, if you're self-employed, and it can only be paid once in a 30-day period unless a health official or a doctor tells the employee to get another test. Workers may also be eligible if they need to support a dependent. So if you've got children or a family member who is dependent on you and you need to stay at home, then the short-term absence payment might be applicable as well. The COVID-19 leave support scheme, I'm going to get really, really quick because I don't want to be sprayed, is for when a worker has been told to self-isolate for a period of at least 4 consecutive days. And this is paid to the business owner at a rate of about $600, or not about, at a rate of $600 a week for people who work 20 hours a week or more. And if they work 20 hours a week or less, then it's $359 a week. And casual employees are also eligible for this payment as well. So to be eligible for at least one payment of the leave support scheme, the employee will have been required to self-isolate for at least 4 consecutive calendar days. So this means they can't come into work because they're isolating, or they're one of the affected groups and they can't work from home. And of course your business needs to be registered and operating in New Zealand. Right, quick. MSD acknowledges that while the local economy is in a pretty good condition at the moment, some employers are still struggling and will continue to face challenges in the current labour market, particularly around labour and skill shortages. So the support of government is needed for these employers, and MSD's recruitment services, including our employment and our training products, are just an example of the government support that's available to you. Now, employers often ask us about the skill level of our registered job seekers at the moment. We have industry partners that are telling us that they've noticed an increase in the calibre of candidates, job seekers, because of COVID impact. And many of these job seekers come from diverse industries with qualifications and skills transferable to other industries as well. In Canterbury, we've got about 8,500 registered job seekers at the moment, and approximately half of them have been on a benefit for less than 12 months. So this forms Canterbury's largest talent pool. And these candidates have attained various levels of competencies for the labour market, ranging from warehousing, store worker roles, to retail roles, to seasonal worker roles, hospitality, tourism and operators, you name it. We've got people that are experienced in that area. So at MSD, we've got a number of employment products and services to support businesses with their recruitment needs, including pre-employment training, wage subsidies, self-employment assistance and apprenticeship support. How am I going? Oh, God. Okay, so I'm going to cut to the chase. Come and talk to us anyway if you want to know about those employment products and supports. One last thing. We have a new redeployment support service that's just been implemented. Now, this is a new service that's been developed to work with businesses to support you and people that are at risk of being displaced from their work. Now, our team work with these businesses specifically, but more importantly with the impacted workers who are likely to be displaced, with a view to being able to move them to new opportunities either within your business or to another business, and or training opportunities that might be happening in the community as well. Luckily for us tonight, we've got the lovely Nigel Davis, who's new to this team. Put your hand up, Nigel. He is your local man. He's been in the local rag recently. Thank you very much, Miles Enterprise North Canterbury, for publishing that for us. So if you need to talk to us about redeployment support, please have a chat to Nigel. That is it.
Miles and Heather and everybody at ENC asked me to talk about cost cutting originally. And I thought that's a really good topic, given we're in pretty tough times and the economic environment is challenging. But I thought to myself, what am I talking to all my clients about at the moment? And it's not how to cut costs, it's how to increase prices and manage cash flow. So I thought I'd kind of spin that on a different angle and start talking around different pricing strategies and how to understand your business. What have we got up there? Pricer, and this is going to have to be quick as well. So it is a challenge to keep to 5 minutes. Have an annual pricing plan. I've had clients and people that I've talked to who don't increase prices for 3 or 4 years, which is just horrific. So make sure 1st of April, 1st of December, choose your day, don't really care, increase your prices. Don't be scared. If you've got a good product, make sure you're doing it. Know your costs. A lot of people don't know what it costs to produce whatever they're doing. If you're making a coffee, make sure you know how much that cost of that cup costs, how much the beans cost, how much the labour costs, so that when you have an increase in one of those costs, you know that it has increased and you know how to pass it on. Know your margin. So where we've got different products or services that we're delivering to our customers, actually understand which ones are making the money. I'm making $1 off a cup of coffee, I'm making 20% off a civil contracting job, or whatever the business is you have, or if you're providing accounting services, know what that margin is. And break it down by the different products, break it down by the different regions, by the different staff members. So if you've got one foreman or manager who's doing really well, then you go, the other guy's not, then you can actually start to address how to make a little bit more money or lose less money by dealing with that. Know it by division. A lot of customers have different divisions that they have, and you think of a legal firm, they might have property, they might have estates, they might have whatever. Know which ones are making the margin and really start to push that. Increase prices, the fourth to bottom point, just do it. We're in an environment where we've got heaps of inflation, 5.9%. There's more coming. I was listening to an economist's presentation today around Russia and everything else. It's getting very, very scary how fuel and everything's just going to go up. We've all heard about wage inflation. So don't be scared to increase your prices. If you've got a good product, if you've got a good service, just get out there and do it and communicate why you're having to do that. Value bill. If you're adding more value or you've got different products that are really, really innovative, do add a charge of premium on those as well, and don't be scared to articulate why you're charging more for those. Do less for more. So again, if you're selling a product and you can go, hey, it used to be a 100 gram product, it's now 90 grams, keep the price the same, or do have, instead of doing the lawns, if you're mowing lawns, doing them twice a month, do them fortnightly, go to twice a month and still keep the prices the same. So just think about how you can do that. And the old do you want fries with that, continually upsell things. What if we gave you this? What if we gave you this? And get more sales out of the current customers you've got. How am I going?
Good. I took some of your time so you can have a bit extra.
Cost cutting. So when you do get to have a look at cost cutting, I'm not saying don't cut costs, but do have a think about it. But the focus is on increasing prices. For cost cutting, focus on the top of the profit and loss. Talking around costs of inputs, costs of wages. Don't go chasing out a couple $100 in bank fees or something like that. It's not going to make or break your business. So really focus on that top stuff. Cost of goods, like can you buy in bulk? Can you have better wage efficiency? Deal with underperforming staff, can we structure shifts differently, can we do all of those things? So really, really focus on how you can add more gross profit to your whole business without changing what else is going on. But so much of the conversations we have, people are focusing on the small stuff that's a little bit minute. Have a think about the assets you've got in the business as well. So many businesses I see have 2 laptops, 2 utes. They've got a machine that they once used and don't anymore. So just get rid of that stuff. There's just no point having all this additional cost built into the business. And then don't go cutting costs in things that that are a bit of a risk, like insurance, health and safety, marketing, advertising, legal, accounting, of course, and consultants. So do just focus on the right things to cut. You don't want to expose your business to a huge amount of risk by trying to chase a few extra dollars. The last slide, Miles. Cash flows. Cash is really tough, and for all businesses at all times of the year. So have a 12-week rolling cash flow forecast. What is the bank balance today? What cash is coming in every week? What cash is going out? And where's the bank balance going to be at the end of the week? And if you have that for 12 weeks, you're going to know with a fair bit of advance warning what's going on. We do this for businesses that are really struggling, and businesses that are doing average and businesses that are doing great. It's just really good practice, and it's very, very simple for whoever's doing your books to keep an eye on. You think about the bank, if you go, hey, I'm going to run out of money in 8 weeks' time, it's a lot easier to have that conversation today rather than ringing them on the day when you're trying to pay wages. So really do have that good discipline in place. Know when tax is due. Don't always blame the accountant for not knowing when your tax is due. There's only like 15 payments a year aside from PAYE, so take the ownership and figure out when they are and put them in, know what's coming up. Manage holiday pay, because when someone resigns or takes leave, it's a big wad of cash all of a sudden that you kind of didn't expect, so keep an eye on that. Move the slow stock. So many people have bought stuff, it's sitting there, they're not getting, I bought this for $1,000, I really want to sell it for $2,000. If it's been there for 2 years, just sell it for $1,500, get the cash back in the business and move on with life. Same with assets we've talked about. If you've got heaps of assets lying around, get rid of them, get them off the books, keep your business nice and lean so that when you get into these tough times, you know where you're at. Chase debtors. People who don't pay you are frustrating and they're probably in a really difficult position, but the squeaky wheel syndrome, if you moan the loudest, you'll get paid the quickest, so just do it. And don't feel ashamed for moaning. They're the one not fulfilling their contract with you by not paying, so you're well within your rights. Communicate with creditors, so if you're struggling, do engage them first, and equally keep the banks involved in what's going on, have a chat with them, communicate, don't lie, don't hide things, just fess up. So that was, real quick, top tips for cutting cost, increasing prices, managing cash.
Hi, Sam Sutherland. Following on from what David said, I'm a commercial lawyer based in Rangiora, but what are our clients talking to us about at the moment and what are they concerned about? And most of that's flexibility in their business, how they can change with the times and sort of move their business along so they're not too badly affected by what's happening. Thinking along those lines, one of the things that people are worried about at the moment is their leases. That's something sort of inherently inflexible. You've got that set in stone for several years and there's not too much you can do about that. So people going into business have a good hard think about whether you need a premises. Can you be online? Can you work from a shared space? Do you need that premises? If you do, that's all good and well. Things to think about are that initial term. We're seeing a bit of a change where landlords would like you to sign up for a long initial term. Probably in this environment, people are finding tenants that they want to go for a slightly lesser term with a lot of renewals. That means that, the ball's in their court. They can look at it for the first couple of years. Is this premises working for me? Is it functioning? Do I need it anymore? Are the costs too high? And so when that renewal comes along, the ball's in the tenant's court. So that's always a good position to be in. The other thing we're finding is if people are trying to sell their business at the moment, things are a little bit more difficult. Often they'll do the deal, and that's great. Someone's coming in to buy their business, and then if we're acting for the landlord or if somebody else is, they need to get the landlord's consent to the assignment of the lease. And right at the moment, landlords are looking at that quite carefully to make sure that the person coming into the business or the new tenant has got enough means to meet the lease. So they're asking some quite, stringent conditions. Scott will be saying that, and David, statements of position, what are the assets, what have they got, what's their business experience, all of that sort of thing. So we're seeing a few landlords refusing consent because they're worried about that incoming tenant. Things are tough. It's quite hard to make it work in business at the moment. So some landlords are looking at bank guarantees and things like that. So what we'd say is during that process, engage early with the landlord, see what they require, and put together a really good statement of position, shows all the business experience, all your assets, that sort of thing. So that's a little on leases. The other thing you can consider is a sublet. If you're having trouble, using your space and things are tight, you could look at getting someone in to sublet with you. Landlord's got to consent to that, but often if it helps you pay the rent and it's not going to be, too detrimental to the premises, they'll look at it. So that's something, to look at. Otherwise, it's pretty hard to get out of your lease. So those are things to think about. The other thing at the moment that's been coming up for our commercial clients is terms of trade, so terms and conditions. Suddenly people are looking, they've got debtors, people aren't paying, and then people suddenly think, now what's the terms, what do we agree here? Often there's no terms and conditions, and if you haven't got them, it's really difficult to try and pull that debt in. If you haven't got a penalty interest clause in a terms and conditions of trade, you can't charge them. You can't charge debt collection costs, those sorts of things. Also taking security. So if you've put a heat pump in, you're in that business. You put a heat pump in somewhere and someone doesn't pay. If you want to put a security on the personal property security register and pull that heat pump back if they don't pay, you can't do that if you haven't got it in your terms and conditions. So they don't need to be elaborate, they can be short and sweet. They just need to have in there all the things you need if things go wrong. It's like an insurance policy, have them there, have them on your website, send a copy to your clients, and then if something goes wrong, you've got them there. The other side of that is supply contracts at the moment. People are starting to look at force majeure clauses. So during COVID, suddenly nobody even looked at force majeure clauses. It was just something that was in there, never relevant. It's been super relevant, in the last 15 years. We've had earthquakes and pandemics and things like that. So they're good to have in your supply contracts, but they can work against you and for you. So they're not all created equal. Have a look at them and really see if they work in your circumstances, for your contracts coming in and you supplying goods. Sometimes it would be best if you were able to get out of the contract if they're due to pandemic or unable to supply, but sometimes you don't want your suppliers to be able to lean on a force majeure contract and say they won't fulfil their contract. So really good idea to have a look at those, just look at the wording and see if they're going to work for you, and then at yours and see if you need a force majeure clause in there and if it's going to work for you and how you want that to function with what you've got going on. So there's a whole lot of things I could go into, but they're the couple of things that are coming up at the moment, and I think I'm probably under my time.
Well, once upon a time, there was a new policy announced called the Accredited Employer Work Visa, and it was for implementation in November 2019. After being deferred on more than one occasion, key dates have been confirmed, and the Accredited Employer Work Visa will launch for work visa applications in July, so it's almost here. It's an employer-led 3-check system. First is the accredited employer check, and all employers must become accredited to hire migrant workers. And the second is the job check, which is the labour market test, as it will look in the future state. And third is the migrant check, and that's when a migrant worker can apply for their work visa. So that said, we'll just move on to some other updates, and hopefully we're on the right slide. Replacing the Essential Skills Work Visa, the Accredited Employer Work Visa will launch on the 4th of July to both on and offshore applicants. Employers will need to be accredited under the new policy and have passed a job check to hire a migrant worker. Next slide. There is no longer a requirement for the high volume accreditation that jobs pay at least 10% of the minimum wage, nor be covered by a collective agreement. The new median wage threshold will apply across the board. High volume accreditation will have the same requirements as standard accreditation, which is quite a positive change, but to employ more than 5 workers at any one time, high volume accreditation must be held. Employers can upgrade from standard to high volume accreditation once they actually have their accreditation and they need to change. There will still be additional requirements for franchisees and businesses that place accredited employer work visa holders with controlling third parties, for example, labour on hire companies. All employers will be required to advertise vacancies unless the role is paid at least twice the median wage or is on a new skills shortage list. Occupations for this list are still to be determined. There will be more flexibility around calculation of whether the median wage threshold is met. Next, thank you. So let's have a look at the implementation dates. 23 May, employers can apply for accreditation. 20th of June, the accredited employer submits a job check, and on the 4th of July, migrants can apply for the actual visa. A migrant can still apply for an essential skills work visa until the 3rd of July. Now, we do encourage any employer who has a migrant workforce to familiarise themselves with what they need to commit to obtain accreditation, and this can all be found on the Immigration New Zealand website. Also, if you don't already subscribe to Immigration New Zealand updates and newsletters, you can do that on the website as well so that you receive information as it comes out. So this brings me to the end of this business speed dating for professionals. Thank you very much.
3 lots of support. The first is the new targeted relief package that closes on the 5th of May. I'll go further into that, but if you want to get it, you need to get in within the next month. The next bit is changes to the small business cash flow scheme, and then the last bit is they're just generally helpful. I'm sure I'm paraphrasing somehow. So the COVID-19 support schemes, excuse me while I look backwards. There are 3 payments available, fortnightly payments. They are, if you have been impacted, you're 40% down. They have changed the rules a little bit. It used to be 40% down since before February the whatever it is, 16th of February, but now you can actually look at the same period last year to look if you're losing 40% or more. If you are losing 40% or more, then you can apply for these payments, 3 fortnightly payments that will just help you keep going. It doesn't say how much they are, and I've forgotten. I'm such an expert. I am. But do look it up. Do put your application in before May the 5th. It's from February the 15th. You're still eligible for all 3 payments if you can show the loss of 40%, but if you don't apply by May the 5th, then you miss out altogether. The small business cash flow scheme. This is a really good way if you are short of cash, you know it's a temporary situation. They will lend you money to be able to keep going. You don't actually have to pay it back for 3 years. Yeah, interest payments, no compulsory repayments until the start of the 3rd year, 3% rate, which is pretty good right now, and it's up to 100K depending on how much staff you got. So it's $10,000 minimum plus $1,800 per employee. So if you need some money to get through, it's actually a really good way of just keeping the wolf from the door. And the third is they are just helpful. So, honestly, we're from the government, we're here to help. If you are having trouble with your tax or you suspect that things are going to go wrong, front-foot it, honestly. The amount of times I've seen where people have front-footed it, gone to the IRD, and the IRD have actually helped out to try and sort out the situation. They will do that. Where they don't do that is if you don't front-foot it, you back-foot it, and they find out that you are not being completely honest or you're being late. They're government employees, they'll slam you. Sorry, I didn't say that. They're lovely people. So yeah, honestly, approach the IRD, approach Amy. She will help you out. If you are having trouble paying your taxes or you suspect you will be, front-foot it. And I think that's the end of the presentation.
So I want to start by saying, what if it was possible to live in this world that is filled with stress, anxiety and worry and still have more mostly good days. So my work is very much in that space. Understanding the science of strength is something that I've done for about the last 20 odd years. And it's something that I'm hugely passionate about. In fact, all of this research, or a lot of this research that we've done here in Christchurch, is globally renowned as being leading edge. So I think even though one of the themes that I've heard from all of the speakers so far is that businesses are worried. Yes, we are worried. There's a lot to worry about in the world right now. But actually, we can still live in a world filled with worry and enjoy more mostly good days. So that's what I'm here, I think, to talk a little bit about. I'm afraid I don't have lots and lots of words on my slides, and there is a reason that I've been given a little bit of extra time, which will, I hope, become clear in just a moment. That is not my slide. So who am I, and why should you believe a word that I say to you this evening? Well, I live in North Canterbury. I'm just from outside Amberley, and we moved out there after the Christchurch earthquakes. That's quite symbolic, because at the time of the Christchurch earthquakes, I was a leadership development coach here in Canterbury, and I was working largely in the construction industry. The construction industry at the time made a pretty significant commitment to well-being. They decided that nobody on their watch rebuilding the city was going to die as a result of being very stressed, making very poor choices, and not looking after themselves, because we were going to be in this extreme stressful environment. I was lucky enough to be one of 5 coaches that was chosen from around the whole of Australasia to work with organisations like New Zealand Red Cross, like resilient organisations, University of Canterbury, and Mental Health Foundation. We were researching what is the difference between somebody who lives in a very stressful world and just gets through their week, collapses on a Friday with beer, wine, Netflix, anyone, and just kind of survives, versus somebody who lives in exactly the same environment and thrives. Who knows what I mean when I say thriving? What's it like to thrive? Are we happy all the time? No, but we on balance experience more positive emotions compared to negative emotions. We experience more positive relationships compared to negative relationships. So if you're sitting there right now thinking that doesn't sound like me, I'm hoping that you might learn something from this evening. Miles asked me to condense 10, 11 years worth of research and work into 5 minutes, and I just laughed. So he said, okay, you've got 10. So I thought, shit, better make that happen. So I'm going to try as much as I can to go the right way with the slides, and we'll see what happens. I've got one question for you, and it's this. What have you done this week in the last 7 days to recharge your battery? I would like you to spend just 1 minute at your table. Turn to the person sitting next to you. Maintain physical distance, please. And just share one thing that you've done in the last 7 days to recharge your battery. And then we'll look at why that might be important. Thank you so much for embracing that, because you didn't know that was coming. I've just got Miles having kittens on the side of me here.
Networking.
I told them physical distance. So what you've just done is a number of different things. First of all, you've changed the tone. You've started to look at what's going well in your world, not what's going badly. And this is one of the core things that we know about building resilience in a really uncertain space. Focus on what you can change, what you can do something about, and it might be something as little as recharging. Recharging looks different for every single person in the room. There's no way that I should stand here and say, do this, do this, do this to recharge. But what we do know is that people who are resilient, who thrive despite stress in their world, recharge in some very specific ways. And so when you get your handouts tomorrow, what I've done is I've put together a flowchart that gives you some more information about how you might like to do that. Because this is at the heart of our recharge. What we know is that when our battery is green and we're fully functioning, we're feeling good and we're functioning well. I'm 100% green, I'm a different person to when I'm red. What we also know is that unless the really big things happen to us in life, there's actually a sliding transition. There's a sliding scale. Our battery goes a little bit yellow and then a little bit poo brown, and then suddenly we find ourselves red. And what we found out in Christchurch was that most of us ignore that transition. We don't choose to notice that our battery is starting to fade and then choose to recharge. So what I hope I've just done is helped you to notice the things that you need to do regularly. It might be walking outside in nature, it might be catching up with loved ones or people that make you laugh and smile. If you sat there and you couldn't think of anything, then please do come and talk to me, because I've got lots of tools and strategies in my toolkit to help you. If this has given you a little bit of an interest in understanding more about the battery recharge, please do get in touch, because I am going to be running some workshops locally, and I know that Miles and the crew are going to be sending out those dates tomorrow. Along with this, this is just one of several posters that I put together. I'm well known around New Zealand for my Mental Health Awareness Week posters. And so what this does is it's just an introduction to the science of recharge. You know, how could I make choices during my week, my day, 10 minutes a day, to recharge my battery? If I'm not doing that, my battery is getting flatter and flatter. And I don't know about you, but I'm a pretty shit leader, pretty shit business owner if my battery is flat. I don't make great choices. I'm not very nice to be around. So the more I can do to recharge my battery on a daily basis, the better my life's going to be, the better my business is going to be, and the better I'm going to be around as a leader. Thank you for your time.
One-on-one assessments. I meet with businesses. We sit down, talk about what the gaps are, what the opportunities are, whatever the stresses are, and I try and connect them to all the support and networks that we know are available to them. So whatever the stage a business is at, it doesn't matter whether you're just starting out, whether you've been in the game for 20 years, we're always growing and evolving in business, and no one's got it all figured out, so we just try and fill the gaps in and take people to the next stage that they want to be at. We've got a long list of expertise that we can tap into as well, local and further afield. And the next thing I will go into, just always get in touch with us at any time, just to talk about whatever it might be. Don't hesitate to get in touch with me. So, access to training subsidies and R&D grants. We manage a fund in North Canterbury. We have an allocation for training, basically from the Regional Business Partner Network, and it's not that difficult to tap into as long as you're GST registered and you're not a trust. And you can that can pay for up to 50% of your training, strategic work, working with business coaches, and I would, why wouldn't you? The government wants to pay for half of it. I think it's worth tapping into, and it's the easiest sort of money you're ever going to find. So that's all for capability development. So you can't have your website developed or something like that by somebody else, but it's all coaching, capability development stuff. We can also connect to Callaghan Innovation to explore your eligibility for research and development grants. I would just connect you to someone there, but if you're an inventor or something. And access to data and essential tools for decision making. That's really more Miles's area, but it's nice to know, we've got an extensive array of data to help make your decisions and understand the wider picture. And so that's sort of something what we do. And breakfast briefings. We've been running these little punchy breakfast briefings that cover a variety of subjects, and they've been quite popular. So, for $30, you can come in and sit down and listen to an expert talk about their subject matter and ask some questions afterwards. So it's pretty good bang for buck, really, and do a bit of networking. We want to run a few more of those, we hope to, in the future, and again, covering a wide variety of subject matter. And talk with the experts. We're lucky enough to have some great business service partners who are involved with us, and some of you are here tonight, and we're so grateful to have you align with us, and they will run these talk with the expert sessions where you can book in 40-minute chat with an expert about what it might be marketing, it might be a business coach, and just chew the fat. It's free, so I'd encourage you to, you can keep an eye on what's happening through our website, and that's something well worth tapping into. So we're all about, a lot of what I deal with is a lot of small and medium-sized businesses that don't have huge budgets for marketing teams and all that kind of stuff. So we're looking for real results that are tangible and not incredibly expensive. So things like that, any way we can help like that is all good for our business in my book. And really, I just, want to drive home, just get in touch with me. Everyone's got their own story, their own pressure points, their own journey they're on. I look forward to talking to you.
Kia ora. At the moment, New Zealand's economy continues to experience some huge disruptions with the Omicron variant still running across the country, but we continue to see those strong local foundations continuing to move New Zealand forward, as well as our regional areas. And although we are seeing that short-term disruption from Omicron, there's still a feeling that those strong foundations give us the ability over the next year to move forward strongly, albeit with headwinds and challenges still. As we look at the moment, there are a number of difficulties finding staff across the country, particularly as many continue to isolate either with Omicron or as a household contact, or again not willing to go out and about quite as much. These sort of issues definitely starting to and continuing to challenge the tourism sectors across the country. People not quite as keen to move out and about, wanting to stick to their own bubbles, stick to their own families a lot closer. There is, though, pause for expectations that things will turn better. We do currently have that hesitancy of going out, but we are expecting that to turn around. Evidence from overseas showing that restaurant activity globally has rebounded after the Omicron hit, and we are expecting in another month's time we could well see those better levels of economic activity coming through as New Zealand generally unlocks, people feel more willing to get out and about, and we see a bit of a bounce back moving through. We have still seen a very volatile and continue to experience a very volatile period for the New Zealand economy. Up until the second half of last year, the New Zealand economy was going strongly before the Delta lockdown appeared. Since then, we've seen spending activity and most other economic indicators show a determined bounce, a determined regain in economic activity through the second half of last year, but that rebound, that determined bounce has been short-lived as we have had those disruptions continue to move forward. And although we're starting to be more unlocked, we've seen restrictions that have been lessened across the country, tourism activity that is expected to restart, the challenges of keeping things moving remain. North Canterbury remains a very strong economic performer, with again those strong foundations moving things forward and a determination really and a resilience to continue looking for better opportunities and better options as we move forward. Spending activity has been a bit more muted in some parts of the region, although in general we've seen that spending has held up strongly relative to other more metropolitan areas where spending has certainly not been quite as upbeat. Parts of Hurunui district with a greater focus on tourism in some parts just haven't seen the same level of people they might have expected, but at the same time we know that our primary sector has been doing extremely well, and I'll touch on that in just a second. In terms of employment activity across the region, we've seen a much stronger level of professional, scientific and technical services, those high-paid, high-skilled jobs starting to move forward, alongside a high level of construction jobs that have been added into the local economy, and strength in retail trade as people still have been willing to get out there and back local. The primary sector has been hit hard by the limitations on finding skilled workers, and although there's certainly an expectation of growth in activity, the number of people just employed in that sector has been limited by border closures and those general difficulties in finding staff across the economy. With those staff shortages, with that challenge of finding labour, we are expecting to see considerable wage pressure over this year as households look to try and combat inflation by asking for higher pay, but also as the shortage of labour across the entire economy starts to suggest that there is a need to be bidding up those prices to make sure that businesses confirm they have access to labour. And as we go forward, we do expect to see there to be a high level not only of additional attraction by businesses by putting some serious money on the table, but also a key focus on trying to retain current levels of staff so that businesses can keep their operations running. A key risk for this year remains around the possible brain drain for New Zealand. So far we've seen that a number of people that would usually have moved to New Zealand to work haven't done so because of the pandemic, but by our estimates there's perhaps 40,000 New Zealanders who usually would have moved overseas during COVID-19 that haven't because of Fortress New Zealand but are now risking moving out. Already New Zealand's net migration outflow is about 7,500 people, and there's certainly risks that that could go lower still and again exacerbate that difficulty of finding staff across the economy. And that is meaning that businesses in North Canterbury and across the economy will want to keep a very tight hold on the staff they currently have, because trying to find someone new will remain difficult this year and will remain costly as we go forward. Some of the national trends that we see will be affecting North Canterbury as we move forward. There are some key headwinds, some key challenges as we continue through the year. Consumer confidence isn't great. In fact, it's some of the worst on record, which is a real challenge as we start to see higher interest rates, as we see inflation eating into household budgets, the housing market turning around, but we also know that the strength of the primary sector, particularly in North Canterbury, has been bolstering expectations, and there's a feeling still on the ground of that local determinedness, if you will, and the resilience to move forward to find new ways of operating. That inflation is going to be a key task, a key challenge for 2022. Expectations now that it could well top 7% per annum, the highest in generations, and a real difficulty as households try to plan what they're doing next, and could well bring forward some spending as people try to get ahead of the curve before inflation gets even worse. But we do expect the distributional impacts are a real challenge. Businesses and households alike battling to figure out what to pay first in their budget and what else they might be able to trim. We've seen no relief yet when it comes to inflation and freight costs. Freight costs still running at about 7 times their usual average, not having increased quite as much in recent months, which is certainly reassuring, but no word yet on any declines in those freight prices. And by our expectations, that means the difficulties in getting supply, getting the right goods and materials will remain difficult in 2022, and there's still no relief in sight for those very high costs of bringing in various goods. Of course, globally, there are huge challenges. The Russian invasion of Ukraine has added a whole new dimension to an already chaotic global environment. And in our minds, we don't see that those inflationary pressures caused by the war in Ukraine get any better anytime soon. That global conflict is certainly not going to simmer down, and that means in our view that the likes of diesel prices, food prices and some important minerals and precious metals will continue to be at those high levels for a while, and again starts to continue and contribute to those high levels of inflation we expect across the general economy. All of that presents some huge challenges, but as I said at the start, we do continue to see some key resilience coming out of North Canterbury. We know that there are some very high commodity prices at the moment which are supporting our primary sector. Yes, there are increased costs, but at the same time those high prices are certainly positioning the sector as well as possible to support and provide that strong foundation for the wider economy. Agriculture is the backbone of the local economy across North Canterbury. By our estimates, around about 18% of economic activity in North Canterbury comes from agriculture alone. Nationally, only about 5% of total economic activity comes from agri, and so you can see that shift in provincial expectations very much continuing to drive the New Zealand economy forward. There are huge challenges that remain. We expect that New Zealand is still in for a volatile ride, but those strong foundations, that sense of resilience and community spirit across local communities, including in North Canterbury, is what we expect stands us in good stead as we face those challenges ahead.
we're a small team, but I think we punch well above our weight, and we're here tonight. You actually may see that we've got a new logo. 18 years on, that's how long I've been here. And somebody said, you need a new logo. I went, do I? Anyway, so through the Mark, a local North Canterbury business, they've developed us a lovely new logo that'll hopefully do the next 18 years. But if you notice, our tagline is connect, invest and grow. And that's what we're doing tonight. We're connecting you with some experts and our team, of course, and each other. We're looking to invest, and we're going to be looking at an investment proposal to get more workers into our district. We're short of good skilled and unskilled people, and I think that our region rocks and that people will be moving here. We know for a fact that 1,200 Aucklanders have moved from Auckland, obviously, in the last 12 months to the Waimakariri district, and that's just the Aucklanders. So we know that we're a great proposition, and we sing it from the tops. Anyway, and finally, grow. We're here tonight because we have sensed that we are in tough times, and we're calling this Tools for the Times. This is just part of a wee initiative that we're kicking off tonight. Tonight's an informational session, and as I said, you'll get the notes and contact details of our speakers, and I'm really most grateful for all of you contributing tonight, and they are all friends of ENC and sponsors, some of them. But also tonight we're announcing a new initiative through the small team that we are, the wonderful board that we have that supports us, that includes Mayor Dan and Jim's, who's already gone, and Mayor Maree, and 9 volunteers that really think that what more can ENC do, and that is actually to grow our base. And so we're launching a peer support initiative. So it's not a business mentor program, because we're not going to reinvent what's already available to businesses. And Business Mentors New Zealand is 300 mentors just in Canterbury alone, and they do a great job. This is actually about local business owners over the kitchen table talking to other business owners. And we're already now a team of another 23, and a few of them are in the room tonight actually, business leaders in their industry who are actually going to offer an hour of their time, or whatever it takes, over a cup of tea, in a coffee shop, over a beer, at home, wherever it suits that business owner, to talk one-on-one about the times and how challenging they are. Because most of these business owners have been through what you're going through. And there is only Guy, and we're trying to bolster that. He has the money, he's the money man. These people aren't the money people, these are the people who have words of wisdom, and we want to share that, and they want to share that. So we're going to match you with that, what we're calling a peer support provider. It's a marrying business, but it might be sector to sector. We don't know what it'll be, but we know the business. We know you people, and we know the people that have put their hands up to be part of this program. They'll spend that time together. It's not a formal process, but you can register through a jot form. We then make the match, and then we follow up. And sometimes that business owner will say, actually, I hear what you're saying, but you need to go back to ENC, and they'll then refer you to an IP consultant, an accountant, a lawyer. They're not the people that are on our peer support program. It's actually the business owners. So we'll introduce you, we'll be involved, we're not going to let go. A couple of months later, we're going to check in with you. Was there any value in that? And if so, we'll promote that, and we're actually going to promote it out to the rest of North Canterbury. So you're the first to hear about it tonight. So we'll send out that information tomorrow. We're going to make a hoo-ha about it, but you heard it first here. And I think that we just have to get innovative and work together to be positive, to lead the way, recharge each other's batteries, as Kathryn says. And, you know, we're a positive team and we want to be here for you, and so does the board, so we're grateful for that. So just to finish off this evening, thank you very much for your time. And money, Regan, that was really very useful. That's where the drinks are tonight, but unfortunately when I'm finished, there's no drinks, there's no networking. The door is there, sorry. I'm sounding a bit like Miles. And, but I'd also like to thank our valued sponsors, for without them, and again, a few of them are in the room tonight. You know, they contribute $85,000 a year to ENC, and that's through our relationships of giving them the satisfaction of supporting North Canterbury businesses, and you'll know a lot of them there. Main Power in particular have been a major sponsor of ENC right from dot. It was when we grew to about 5 people that I remember Alan Bridge saying, Heather, move on. So he paid our rent for the next building we went to, because we're actually based in Main Power building. That's where we started 20 years ago. So thank you again for coming. Thank you again for my team for making this happen, and we'll be in touch. Thank you.